Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to The Last Word. I'm your host, Fletcher, and tonight we are going to be talking about the Seahawks re-signing Marshawn Lynch and what that means for their future heading into Week 17 against the 49ers in the playoffs. So, I'm going to jump right off the bat right here and say I don't think it's going to work out that well for them, and there's a number of reasons. Obviously, back in the day, he was an elite running back, arguably the best in the league, and nobody can say he wasn't. And I believe that everybody, including every single Seahawks fan and even Pete Carroll at this point, is thinking, why didn't they not run it on the 1 yard line? And they handed New England the Super Bowl with that play call. Anyways, moving on to the present day. He's making a return to Seattle going into the playoffs and reuniting with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. So, I don't think it's going to work out. And the biggest reason for me is he's a running back. He's 33 years old, almost 34. And his last season in Oakland, it's not that productive. Also, he's been away from the NFL for almost the whole season. I'm not saying he's going to be super out of shape or anything, but I'm not positive that he's going to be exactly ready for the strain of an NFL game. He's gotten older. I'm sure he's only regressed since his last year in Oakland, which he was only able to play in 6 games due to injury. And, in those 6 games, he fared well. He averaged 4.2 yards a carry, almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he was not elite. He didn't have that same burst, that same strength, that same crushing power that he had when he was with Seattle. And the year before that in Oakland, he was a decent back. He had shown that he still had it for the most part. But he had 891 yards, 7 touchdowns. He was averaging 4.3 yards a carry. However, the numbers went down the following years. He's dealing with injuries. His body is aging. He's an old running back. And the thing is with old running backs is that they have taken a lot of beating over their years in the NFL. And while a lot of people may say that him being away from the NFL for this past year will prevent his chances of getting injured, I say otherwise. I believe that it's only going to harm him because he hasn't been around a training staff or the trainers there or just anything in Seattle. He hasn't been up in Seattle. He hasn't dealt with their conditions. He's been in California, just living out the dream in the Bay Area. He's been coaching up the youth kids, and now he's finally moving back, getting into an NFL uniform, and I'm not exactly positive that he's going to be doing well. Now, I would not be surprised either by any means if he ended up being a huge help, a big time factor, and even winning if he does play this week 17 against the 49ers, and a win against the 49ers, but I don't think that's going to happen. Go Niners. That's my team right there. I'm never going to be betting against them. Jimmy G's my man. So, I could see him being a factor in that. I could see him being a factor in maybe a first-round game against the Philadelphia Eagles. While they do have a strong front seven, their defense and their defensive coordination, aside from last week against the Cowboys, that was a really solid, coached game and great game plan by the Eagles and Jim Schwartz. I can see him having a good game against the Eagles because they have to account for the passing threat of Russell Wilson. However, his next round, he would be going up against the Saints or the 49ers. And both those teams, while he does have the history of getting the Beastquake against the Saints, that was in his prime. And I think it's a completely different Saints team. He's not going to eat against them. They're built to stop a player like Marshawn Lynch. They have good enough secondary guys that can be isolated one-on-one against Tyler Lockett and the receiving core of the Seattle Seahawks, so they can put more people in the box and stop the running threat that Marshawn Lynch poses or may pose at the age 33. But my biggest concern for me is when you either play the 49ers in the playoffs in Santa Clara, in which they were able to beat them in Santa Clara during the regular season. However, it's been a long time since then. I think the Niners have gotten better than the Seahawks have gotten better. I think that the Niners' run defense is still the best in the league. And besides that, say the Seahawks somehow make it to the Super Bowl. Just some way, somehow, they're still totally Super Bowl contenders and a completely capable team. They either face the Patriots, the Chiefs, or Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And let's be honest here, it's most likely going to be the Ravens. And so I think they're not going to be able to do anything with Marshawn Lynch on the ground against the Ravens or the Patriots. They have had two amazing run defenses, very stout and very well coached. I don't see Marshawn Lynch becoming a huge factor for the Seahawks in any sort of a miracle Super Bowl run. I just don't. I think they're an amazing team. Russell Wilson is an MVP candidate, will be for the next few years. Tyler Lockett is an outstanding receiver, but I believe their lack of depth at running back is really going to hurt them, and I believe that Marshawn Lynch is only a shell of his former self, and I believe the numbers in his last year in the NFL in 2018 sort of support my case there. He was not able to last throughout the season. He had to deal with injuries. When he was on the field, he was effective, but he wasn't explosive. He was getting 60 yards a game. And not only that, he was able to have decent ball security. He wasn't fumbling, but he wasn't explosive. He didn't have the big play opportunities, and that's the thing. That's a huge part about Seattle. And even the run game. Chris Carson, big play threat. Rashad Penny, big play threat. Marshawn Lynch, he's going to be getting tracked down by people. Like, even Janoris Jenkins, that ancient corner, could track down Marshawn Lynch. He's not fast. He's strong. He will always be strong, but he's not explosive. He's not going to be able to get it done like he was in the past. And while I think everybody likes his personality and is in some way, shape, or form pulling that he does well, just because people want him to do well doesn't mean that he's going to do well. A bunch of people are going to be making up stories referring back to the glory days like, oh, the chemistry is still there. No. He's old. The offense has changed and adapted to a new game. Other defenses have changed and adapted to a new game. He's been out a whole NFL season, has not been conditioning with an NFL staff. He's been doing his own thing in Oakland, coaching and whatnot. I think he's been too far away from the game for too long, and he doesn't have a good chance at a solid comeback anymore because of his old age. He is almost 34 years old, and running backs, they aren't like quarterbacks and even some wide receivers. They don't last that long in the NFL. You're thinking about 30 years. 30 years old is probably when they're going to start regressing badly. I mean, yeah, there's the Frank Gores who can be Mr. Consistency, but most of the time you're going to have a few good years into maybe like 28, 29 years old, and then you're going to get the Todd Gurley effect. You're going to get things going wrong with their body, arthritis in the knee, back problems, just leg problems, hip problems. Things go wrong with older running backs because they take such a punishment. And this is taking nothing away from Marshawn Lynch and his ability. He's an amazing player. He was an amazing player, and he helped the Seahawks on several playoff runs and even a Super Bowl run with Russell Wilson against the Broncos. They are a really good team. They're definitely still Super Bowl contenders. I just don't see this Marshawn Lynch signing helping them out on their journey. Sure, it's better than having no Chris Carson or Rashad Penny, but you're still left with a huge gaping hole there at running back, even with the Marshawn Lynch signing. Anyways, that will conclude this video. Leave your comments and like and subscribe if you're new. And this has been Fletcher Ferris with the last word. Peace out.